In recent decades, more and more Black women are occupying spaces where we had been once excluded. Despite the obstacles that we come across from gatekeepers, we have managed to cement ourselves in industries that are still very male-dominated. Such is the case with my next guest, Zamantungwa Khumalo, who has built an impressive property portfolio and a successful daily property podcast, all by the age of 30. Do join us. How are you?
I'm good.
You are good.
I am.
You
actually. I feel like the 30s are treating me well so far.
I mean, you're busy. You're busy online with property. What are you doing?
So it's interesting. I mean, so there are quite a number of things that I'm doing with property. There's All Things Property SA, which has been, it really started off as a hashtag.
Yeah.
Aimed at talking a bit more about certainly my property journey, but helping abantu who want to get into the property market, whether by buying their first home or maybe expanding their property portfolio. And it's now become so much bigger than that. So working with different brands in really educating abantu around property. Because I think I realized certainly throughout my 20s, there just isn't enough info, especially for Black people around property. You don't know how to negotiate for interest rates. We don't even know we can negotiate some of these things.
People don't know that you can negotiate your interest rate for your property, for your car, for everything.
Imoto, I bought my car. I did not negotiate. I wish somebody told me that back then. So all these things, you realize we don't know that you can do them. We don't know the home buying process. And I thought, you know what? People don't have to go through some of this. You know, there's a space where we can teach Abantu. So it's been quite interesting to do that work. I mean, now there's a property podcast with private property. It's literally a dream come true. I mean, when I started the online stuff, one of the things I wanted to do was to have a property podcast. And as far as I know, it's the only daily property podcast, actually,
yes, it is.
property show.
No,
where
property show.
Yeah,
where any platform. You guys are talking about property. Nobody else does that currently in South Africa. I don't know about the other outside the country. Where did your passion for property start, though?
So I've been reflecting a lot on that, you know, and I realized it actually started from my mom. So when we were growing up, Uma used to buy Homeowner magazine every month religiously. Like it was a weird thing because I mean, when I look at the life we lived and then Homeowner magazine, they're worlds apart. Worlds apart. I mean, and here you are buying a magazine that has all these mansions and beautiful homes, and she was collecting them. She eventually, you know, bought land. My parents built our house. And when that house was built, they took us there after they built like the land, after they bought the land, and mo figa nje ihlat. Yeah. And so a lot of us were like, my siblings and I were like, okay, what's
the big deal?
Like it says for Nintlu, not this. and then we go like a week later, now ihlat is gone. And then you go a week later, the foundation is dug, and you get to walk in the foundation. And she'd be like, this is your bedroom, this is going to be the kitchen. And then the foundation is filled, and we literally got to see that home journey, like our house being built and our home being built. And I think in many ways it kind of stuck with me quite a bit. So yeah, I think that love for property and the appreciation for, you know, what it means to have your own home basically started with her.
How many properties are you on right now, Zama?
Many.
At the age of 30, how many properties are you on now, Zama?
I've stopped counting.
So when I met you, you were this young girl, but you were mosting. I could not believe how many things you were involved in, and you were the youngest in this, and the youngest in... Please tell the youngest, count them. Let's count.
Listen, as I count. You know, it's so interesting. My early 20s, even now, I'm like, oh, wow, actually, you were doing the most. Yes.
You were
It was
everywhere.
crazy. Like, it's crazy. And it's interesting for me because oftentimes when a lot of those things were happening, I wasn't present for them, you know?
Really?
I wasn't present.
What do you mean,
I was
Zama?
not present for those things. Noni, it would literally be okay, let's say there's a conference I want to attend. And I would be very intentional about conferences I wanted to attend.
Yes.
I got to represent SA at the United Nations debates. I eventually made it as one of the global shapers. I've attended their different meetings from...
And you were the youngest.
Yeah. And then I entered the competition for... There was this global essay competition that they ran with Global Shapers. Won that, got to attend the meeting in Davos. I'm now being like, oh, wow, you set your mind into, I want to do this.
Yes.
If I had to apply, I'd apply. There was something about the early 20s and just how brave and almost fearless I was. You know, there was just I'm just going to go after it, get it, and then I move on. I think in many ways I wanted to chase the next thing because I wanted to feel enough. So I'm just like...
Validated.
Yeah. So, but now retrospectively, I'm like, okay, if you could have done that when you were almost doing it from a relatively unhealthy place, imagine now knowing what you know, knowing that you can actually do those things and being in a healthier place with myself, how much more I can accomplish. So it was a very, I think the early 20s, they were lit.
You know what, Zama? I think I've done and accomplished quite a lot. I did quite a lot in my 20s. I went through things. I was in, but I felt that I had done nothing compared to what you were doing in your 20s. And that made me gravitate towards you because I was like, I want to know what this chick knows. Yes, she's younger than me, but damn, she knows things that I clearly don't know about. What I want to know is that because you accomplished so much in your 20s, do you not feel like, what else can I do?
In many ways, when I reflected on 30, because I feel like 13 came, I was wishing for days. There's a part of me that says at every decade, I want to be clear about almost reaching the next level. Yeah. There are always going to be accomplishments. Yeah. So even when I look back at the things I did in my 20s, yes, they were amazing, but there's another level of even having those international accomplishments. So that I'm clear about. There's certainly always other horizons. And hiking reminds me of this all the time.
Yes.
So I'm a hiker. Oh, God.
Oh,
love hiking.
I don't know what I would be in my life if there wasn't hiking.
Look, we need to go for another hike soon.
Yes.
I think one of the things about hiking is you can go to, so one of the tallest mountain I've conquered is Itabanatlenyana. It's the highest in southern Africa.
Yeah.
It's in Lesotho. So you go there. There are so many lessons even doing that hike.
Just walking.
I mean, look, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I found it quite difficult to get to the top. Guys. It's so underwhelming. I've been to lower hilltops that looked better than this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mustn't be fixated with the top and
it's
the view. It's the process. What am I saying to myself as I'm struggling to get up? How am I connecting with the person that I'm going up with, right? Am I stopping as I'm going up to take in the view? Am I taking care of myself? So all those things
are very important.
And I didn't do a lot of that in my 20s. Now at 30, and certainly for my 30s, having learned what I learned in my 20s, I know I'll be successful. So that's not something I'm fixated about. I want to succeed from a healthy place. I want to succeed from a place where I'm kind to myself.
And emotional.
Where I don't talk badly to myself in order to get to that successful place. So I'm grateful for, I suppose, all the lessons of the 20s. The success was great. But now it's a new chapter and a chapter that's filled with zonke lezinto that I learned in the 20s.
So, while we're obviously talking about the lighter things in life, your posts have revolved a lot around you being single of late. What's happening?
You know what? The lockdown is interesting because I think a lot of single people, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter, you post quite a bit about, there's quite a lot of shade around it, right?
Yes.
So before you locked down, people were like, oh, are you going to have a lockdown partner?
Yes.
And people would, let's say you had been in the talking stage with someone, you decide to go into lockdown together. And obviously we thought how 21 days, how jiggy now we are
3 months later.
So I think it's just been a very interesting time to have conversations about relationships. I think certainly for me, it's I like talking about relationships, I mean, for different reasons. I think one of them, certainly recently, is just reflecting on how there's such a big overemphasis on romantic love as opposed to any other type of relationship, you know? And especially because I realized, okay, you're 30, you're now at that age where a lot of your friends are married or are getting married and having kids.
Babies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so even access to each other as friends kind of goes low and low and low, right? Because you are taking care of your household, you're taking care of the children, and those kind of things. And so maybe friendship might not be as high up on their relationships to like give attention to.
Yeah.
So I think there's quite a lot to be said about how, especially for women, we push this whole, you must get into a romantic relationship, you must get into and that's a beautiful experience, especially when you choose the right partner and you're both there for each other, you reciprocate the energy that you give to each other. But we just don't talk enough about how friendship is also an important relationship to not just have, but to keep investing in. Just because now you're a Mrs. or somebody's husband and a child is now in the picture, you kind of like forget. I can just imagine how overwhelming that is. I mean, you're a new mom, you're also trying to navigate that space and get acclimatized to it. Your body's going through a lot. And then you probably also just feel so removed from your friends, especially your friends who don't have children, because then you can't talk about these things, they can't share tips. I know the day I decide to have children, or if I decide to have children, I have friends I can reach out to, be like, yo, this is happening, because they've gone through that, right? Whereas for them, maybe at the time, other friends weren't quite there
yet.
Yeah.
Among my friends or among my peers, I was among the first to have a child. So I literally had to carry all of that alone because nobody else understood. So when I hear you talk about wanting a family and, a little piece of me somehow gets sad.
Why?
Because my experience of having children was such that I had to put a lot on pause. And when I hear you say things like, I would like a husband, I'm like, please, God, can you just don't do it? Please give yourself a chance.
So one thing I will say, though, is, so for the longest time, kids were not part of any thing that I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've probably known this. I've always been clear, I don't want kids.
Yes.
Marriage is like, you know, look, the thing about marriage, and I know when I say this, I want to look at me a little funny, but it also just makes structuring your estate easy, right?
It really actually does.
It does.
And I only learned that in my 40s.
Yeah, so for
Can you
me,
believe it?
Yeah, I look at it from that perspective. It's never mind. I mean, I'm very team cohabitation, but certainly once you start looking at certainly the assets I have and am continuously building,
accumulating,
it makes better sense to probably be married. So marriage would happen. Perhaps that's one of the reasons to go that route.
Yeah. Have you found that with your success growing and doing all these things, that you have been losing friends because a lot of them are maybe choosing to settle down and get married and so on?
I wouldn't say I've lost friends because of that.
Yeah.
You know, so they're not linked. I think it's one of those things. Certainly, if I look at the friends, the close friends I had that I now don't have, now, but they are successful in their own way. Okay, some maybe they're now married, or they have kids. And perhaps with one or two of the friendships, it may have been that. You outgrow each other, right?
Yeah.
And not even in a bad way.
Yeah.
I think, you
just want different things in life.
Yeah, or even, this friendship has run its course. Because I think we also need to normalize friendships ending or relationships ending.
In general.
And understanding ukuthi ukula, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they're probably doing well wherever they are in the same way I'm doing well. And so there's no bad blood between the two of us.
Do you feel with success and romantic relationships is a challenge?
For men, it's not. I think women do get punished for it. And a lot of very successful women speak out about the different ways that they're punished for it. Abanye are already in relationships themselves. So they'll speak about how when, let's say, you are working late yet again, or you can't make your child's ballet recitals, the other moms will make you feel bad. Uguti, oh, you're not here again,
yes.
you know?
Man,
you continue being successful. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you can't...
No, it's in relationships because, I mean, I remember that I once dated a guy. When he met me, this guy, it wasn't bad,
Okay.
but it wasn't great.
Okay.
You understand? When things started slowly getting better and what, we started noticing that he kind of like moved away. And this is a trend.
I think, you know what? Sometimes a guy would be like, he's interested in you because you're ambitious or because you're smart, because you're all these traits that you are. So it's not even our auditioning. Like, that's just,
yes.
I'm ambitious. I've always been like this.
Yeah.
I take up space without trying.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how I am, right? So they can initially say they're quite attracted to you because of those things. And then
then reality sets in. Because in order for you to be the successful, he wasn't aware that awulali.
Like, and I think, look, what's probably important is understanding what's a priority for you at different stages in your life.
Yeah.
When I think about my 20s, as much as I'd have post after post about the singer life or wada, if I have to be very honest, umjolo was just not a priority for me. Also, just understanding that men are always going to be there in abundance. Like, yes, banompeto and all these things, but they're not a limited resource.
No.
The reality is it does slow you down in certain respects, right? Especially kids. I think a partner maybe not so much, but certainly a child has you reprioritizing izinto. You can't just up and
no, you can't.
You can't. So there are considerations that you must make when you now have a family. For this period of my life, there are certainly other priorities that I do have. Being partnered would be amazing. It's not on the #1 list. I think I want a block of flats. Quite a lot. Like, I want a block of flats.
Zama, are you ever going to tell us how many properties you currently have?
No.
Why not?
Because I can't need. There are many. I think that's all that counts. I can't need. I think knowing how many is neither here nor there. Also, I think people just use that to try and size you up a bit.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I certainly don't want people to try and do a guesstimate of XYZ because it's not useful, right? Yeah. There's quite a lot of scrutiny on Black people in general and Black women in particular. Yep. So if I say, oh, I've got 15 properties, they'll be like, oh, she's got 15 properties. She just turned 30. How did you do it? Then you're going to try and understand how she did it. Like, I did it because I'm brilliant at what I do. Yep. I know how to spot deals. Yep. I know how to negotiate. Yep. I know how to raise capital. That's how I did it. So now you want to, like, find there's no need to do that. So and it's unfortunate, Duguti, when you're Black and you're a woman, there's a possibility of a different narrative being told about your success that isn't about you just being brilliant at what you do. And the fact that you even have to think about that, I mean, it's the
so
it's
so defeatist. You're just like,
this is
why
boring.
am I justifying myself again?
You know?
So there was a day when you and I went hiking.
Oh, yes. Oh. I love that hike, by the way.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
So we were having a discussion about, because at that point in time, I had literally just lost 40 kilograms. So my weight dropped like that.
Yeah.
But I hadn't registered. Yes, I was wearing smaller clothes, but it hadn't dawned on me that I was 4 dress sizes smaller.
Yeah.
So you and I are hiking there, it's nice, you know, we're having a great time. And then I struck up a conversation with you where I'm saying to you that I'm trying to reconcile being in this body now, whereas for like 20 odd years of my life, I was that size. And you said to me, Nonhlanhla, you are no longer in a position to have conversations about big girl issues.
I remember.
And I was
I remember this one.
I was like, oh my God.
I remember. So I think it's twofold. I mean, on the one hand, you need to now realize, Uguti, the people who are, like, I know psychologically, you still see yourself that way. And so you mentally might not sometimes see it because the issues, maybe the internal issues that you may have had with your body, they're still there. They didn't just miraculously disappear because you're 40 kilograms lighter. So I think on that one level, I certainly sympathize and understand, but certainly in public platforms, you can no longer have the mic, right? So, and I think it's an important thing to note that we've literally branded fatness as this bad thing that you must heal from. And
we've also branded fatness as a characteristic as opposed to a thing.
Yeah.
So how have you been dealing with that? Because you're not a small girl.
I probably didn't problematize my body for a relatively substantial time when I was younger. There were just things about me I didn't problematize because I was in a household where they weren't problematized.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and there was just, it was this normal thing. So I probably would have issues because of comments that were said ngaphandle. And then maybe like
Mawufike ekhaya, and then
yes.
they're just like,
Yeah.
ignore them.
And I'm glad that I didn't get those kind of comments endlessly because I'm sure that would have eaten at me quite substantially. We certainly need to take a deeper look at all the phobias that we have. So whether it's fat phobia, or colorism, abantu don't realize that it's not just as small as you probably think that it is.
It's got far-reaching.
It's actually, yeah, it's actually a bit insane.
Anything else that you want to add?
If I was a guy, I would be so far ahead because
You're already doing the most, girl.
No. I started, and I say this all the time, I started my property formally, right, journey. I bought myself 2 properties for my 26th birthday.
Yeah.
That's how I started, but I was 26. I started viewing property at like 22, 23.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't buy property at that age, or one of the reasons, besides being scared and like, oh, I don't know enough, I was like, yo, I'm so single. Oh my God. If I buy a property at 22, like, who's gonna wanna date me? Do you know how crazy that is?
No, it's not crazy because can I tell you that for the past, it took me this long to finally do this.
Yeah.
On camera, myself, because who's gonna want me?
Yeah. I know if I was a guy, I would have started at like 21, even, not even, I would have probably said 20, first job, you're already on it.
Zamantungwa Khumalo, thank you so much.
Thank you, Noni. Thank you for having me for tea.
Yes.
This was fun.
This
was fun.
It was. I'm so glad you came.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for another episode of High Tea with Noni. I do hope that the information that we keep giving on these shows is something that you feel that you can use to apply in your life. And please remember that it is never too late to go after the dream that you've always set out for yourself. There is no better time than to do it right now. Until next time, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. Be safe. High Tea with Noni, in association with Kericho Gold Tea, supplied by Love Tea Time.